Gino, kick us off. I'm just firing off a tweet.
Okay. Good morning to you all advertising. Welcome back to the Break Entering Live Show, where we go live Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on LinkedIn, on X, and on YouTube. We have a great slate for you all today. And for those that saw on our Instagram at Break Entering Media, yes, we will be talking about heated rivalry.
Heated rivalry in Peloton.
Today.
That's a big one. Sydney Sweeney, new American Eagle jean ad. It's Sid for short, Gino. It's jean shorts. We're going to talk about it. Nespresso Dua Lipa makes their debut. Allbirds is an AI company. Runway AI ad is going viral. Do people like AI now, Gino, with their ads? And then a loaded slate of guests. Carl Johnson, founding partner, executive chairman of Anomaly, talks about their expansion into Paris. Je m'appelle Anomaly.
That's exactly right. We have Patrick Coffey joining right after that to talk about NBCUniversal calling out Nielsen, the legacy player in measurement.
I love beef.
There's a lot of beef going around here.
And Patrick's going to be great because he knows a lot about this stuff that we have no idea about.
No, he's real.
He's the real deal. And then last guest, who you got?
Paul, and help me with pronunciation.
Paul Marvuch.
Marvuch, co-founder of Cousin Labs. They're doing something incredibly interesting with fan accounts, building them for brands like Spirit and Arby's, Jack, and they're hilarious too because they're actually acting in it.
It's like, this is, rarely do you see the front lines of social. This is the front lines. You talk about a content ecosystem. We're not talking about brand channels or building accounts anymore. We're talking about building ecosystems. If you logged in yesterday to listen to us talk with the head of strategy at Portal A, they make YouTube entertainment for brands. She talked about the same thing where they worked with Lenovo, and it wasn't just about making a YouTube video for the brand. It was about everything that goes into that ecosystem. 250 plus pieces of content from one singular YouTube video and campaign. So I'm tying threads, Gino.
Let's tie this thread here. So we got Carl, who's like traditional ad agency, creative agency. We got Patrick coming on to talk about media and measurement, and then Paul talking about social. We're just missing brand, Jack.
We're hitting it all. We're hitting it all. And we'll talk about brand too a lot in the 2-minute drill. Let's start with our top story, though, Gino.
That's what I'm talking about.
Top story. That's how you do a freaking transition.
Let's go.
Apple is getting serious about ads. Get serious with me for a second.
Yes.
Because Apple, they're moving in silence, but not anymore, Gino, because we're talking about it. Business Insider covered it this morning. Really the idea that Apple was kind of 95% of their ads business has been tied to the App Store itself. It's $7 billion, their ad business. But now they're making the move into Apple Maps having ads on it to compete with Google ads on their maps. And they're thinking, there's some speculation around whether we might be moving more into Apple TV ads being a thing. Your thoughts and reactions to this on the Business Insider article that came out this morning.
Yeah, listen, I love when all good here. Welcome to the Break Entering Show. If you're just tuning in live, we're talking about today's top story here and getting reactions to Apple getting serious about ads. I love when a brand is going to get serious about ads. Yeah, we get serious about ads every freaking day, Jack. But if you look at the success that Google has had with all their ads business, from the Play Store, they get revenue from that. But you double that revenue putting into Google Maps those sponsored results. Like when you're going to your phone, restaurants near me, you're going to see those sponsored things here. So this is Apple's next play here. The problem at hand that Apple will need to weigh is the brand perception. You got Apple, luxury brand, high quality here. Ads have this stinky perception. It can ruin the interface here. What would Steve Jobs say about this?
I was just going to say that. Is Steve Jobs, do you think he would ever back down and say we're gonna have ads be a more significant part of our business?
I don't think so. I don't think he would ever say that. I think he would be like, well, we just make a better product.
I know. I think that a lot has changed, and it's interesting because a lot of the more new age, your new wave of technology leaders has leaned way more into ads and way more celebratory of it, trying to change that perception because I think they realize that is going to be a main part of the business. Apple doesn't do as many product upgrades, as many new products, I think, as they were on the frequency when Stevie J was running the ship. And so to offset that, I think you have to lean into the ads. And I think everything is becoming more like software interface driven, and so it makes sense. This is interesting. The biggest thing I learned today, Gino,
yes, Jack,
is that Google pays Apple $20 billion a year to be the default search engine for Apple products.
Google pays that to Apple, and it's not Safari?
When you open Safari, what search engine comes up?
Google. Wow. That's a lot.
So that's like the low-key ads business for Apple that pulls in $20 billion a year. Google is paying them $20 billion a year to be the default search engine on Apple devices. And it's currently under investigation. DOJ, kind of like, they're messing around. It's under appeal. You know how this goes.
Of course.
This has been going on for like 5 years, this case. So much has changed in the last 5 years from a competitive landscape standpoint. The original case would obviously say that like Google and Apple are monopolizing the search engine business because everyone has an Apple device. And so by making Google the default search engine for the only way that people search things, it's a monopoly. But we'll see what happens there. So the argument, I think Business Insider touches on this a little bit, saying that Apple now expanding their ads business is kind of a hedge to the potential that the DOJ strikes down on Google in their agreement.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
So it's a hairy situation. I feel like people, like everyday consumers, would never think about the fact that, oh yeah, every time I go on Safari or Google, or I mean an Apple product, I'm going on Google.
Yeah, but I never even thought about that there. So what do you think are the keys for Apple moving forward to do this the right way, Jack?
Keys to success. I think that the everyday consumer has become so accustomed to seeing ads on everything that if you put an Apple ads on Maps, I don't think anyone would.
Yeah.
Like if you go on Google Maps, you don't realize, you don't even think about it.
I've just trained, my brain's trained just to like hover over it, like kind of scroll past the sponsored like results when I search restaurants near me. It's not like a big deal. It doesn't stop me in my tracks. I still use Google Maps over Apple Maps.
I'm an Apple Maps person.
Really?
But it reminds me of the conversation that we just had about Masters. Like a luxury brand is nothing sacred anymore. If now Apple, from like a brand perspective, is now going to have sponsored results on all their like maps, and Apple TV is going to have an influx of ads, does it take away from that luxury prestige that Apple has built its foundation on over the last 35, 40 years?
I don't think it'll be much of an issue.
Really?
No.
Do you? I want to think that it like matters, like the brand matters, or it makes a difference. But ultimately, I think that the consumer and everyone has been so accustomed and so trained to navigate ads. And I think the ad experience on some of these platforms has gotten so much better, where like I get served ads that actually
help you out,
help me
personalize.
But I think to drill into like Maps ads, if you think about Google versus Apple, Google has the advantage that they have the search engine behind it.
Oh yeah.
To help influence and then also make the ad experience for someone who's buying ads on the platform make much more sense.
Yeah.
Apple now has Apple Business that they're introducing.
Yep.
Do you have more on that?
No, not too much, but I think it's a suite of tools to help business owners, including their ads, like buying ads that are businesses can buy ads for through Apple.
Okay. So then Apple's trying to make the experience better, trying to bring on more advertisers on the platform. I think for this, I think it's a net negative for Apple. I'm bearish on the idea of them. I think it's a slippery slope. Once you start with Apple Maps and then it just becomes more and more. Is nothing sacred?
I'm all for it. I like that Apple's getting serious about ads.
We'll check back in 6 months because Apple has their upfronts coming up, and so we'll see. They might announce.
Maybe we'll buy some ads for breaking and entering on Apple Maps.
Yes.
And then what else was I going to say here?
Anything else before we go into the 2-minute drill?
No, we can go in the 2-minute drill.
Let's keep go you guys into the 2-minute drill. Let's keep it rolling. It's the 2-minute drill. It's the biggest topics of the day. We run through it 2-minute style, 2 minutes a topic. Let's get it going. The first topic, Sydney Sweeney is back. New American Eagle jeans ad for Born in Jeans shorts. If you remember last year, one of the bigger controversies of the year from an advertising perspective, Sydney Sweeney has good jeans, I believe was the tagline.
Good or great?
Has great jeans, great jeans, and it got a backlash online. The brand, American Eagle and Craig Brommers, stood behind it, and now they're back with Sydney, doubling down here. What are your thoughts on this new iteration?
The new iteration, I don't think it's anything that special here. I don't think it's definitely not as controversial I think it's pretty standard play, maybe trying to borrow on all that momentum from the last campaign, just keep it going here. But the last campaign moved the needle. It got 800,000 new customers from it, 56 billion impressions, highest brand demand since 2004. Craig Brommer's on his PR circuit really was proving that as controversial as it was, the negative sentiment that it was effective. So now this is a nice little extension of that here, tapping into the summer. So I think it's going to have an effective play, but there's really nothing controversial about it to talk about.
Yeah, this one, I thought that they might lean into it more. They didn't really address it as much in this new one. And I also understand the idea of like not wanting to force it. I think it could have been very easy to make it lame and be like, to address it very hardcore and get corny with it. But
then they're just riding off the coattails of the success, the conversion of the last campaign.
And I think, I don't know, I think the sentiment of the audience, if you look in the comment section, I think it's pretty like pro Sydney Sweeney. Mm-hmm. I think you can appreciate as a brand, you having the back of your ambassador, your person, and being like, yeah, we don't give a shit about people that are overreacting to the previous thing, and it clearly worked, so why not run it back? It's for jean shorts, by the way. We didn't even mention that.
And she's got the bob haircut, and she's wearing the jean shorts. And she shortened her name to Sid, from Sydney to Sid. Yeah. It's a fine concept.
It's a solid campaign. We'll see how it rolls out, though. I think that's what everyone's going to be excited about. Next story, Nespresso and Dua Lipa.
Yeah, speaking of rolling out the campaign, a couple weeks ago, we covered that Dua Lipa signed on to be a brand ambassador for Nespresso. Remember, George Clooney, longtime brand ambassador for Nespresso here, really built the brand early on. I think this has been for decades. Built the brand early on the luxury, hot coffee that you can bring in your home here, and now they're entering a new phase with a brand campaign that rolled out by Leo Constellation, that's the agency, and it's really using Dua Lipa to show all the variations of the product, iced coffee, different flavors, this whole different sensory experience here. It's like nothing special, I feel like nothing like fantastic in the creative here, but this is a statement that there's so many varieties of Nespresso here, and with the final tagline of quote unquote, what else? What else can we give you all?
What else? Dua Lipa is an all-time it girl. I think this is a situation. I imagine they might be thinking of the longevity the same way they thought with George Clooney with longevity. Yeah. I think Dua Lipa has the star power to be relevant for the next decade plus. If she hasn't, Ellie, Dua Lipa hasn't been in a movie yet, right? I don't think Dua Lipa's been in a movie yet.
Wait, I believe she was in Barbie.
She was in Barbie.
Okay.
She had a song in Barbie. I think she might have performed.
Did she play herself?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking like I can see Dua Lipa extending into film and having some acting roles if she wanted to. I think she could. But all that to say, you think about Nespresso with George Clooney and the success. You said yourself, you now associate George Clooney with Nespresso.
Oh, of course.
And I think they have a similar opportunity here with Dua Lipa, who has the star power to be with the brand for at least a decade plus.
I like that take. And this is a pretty good foundation. And
you ready for this transition?
What do you got, Jack?
This transition, you talk about something that has decade plus longevity. The opposite, I would say, is a heated moment, a flash in the pan situation where Peloton is leaning into and leveraging the cultural relevance today of heated rivalry, Gino.
Let's talk about it, Jack. 2020 pandemic, we all remember it here. Everybody had the Pelotons in their house, had monumental success for that brand. Sales increased like crazy. It had high brand perception in around 2020. But since the end of the pandemic, since 2020, 5 CMOs.
I saw that.
Isn't that crazy?
5 marketing leaders in 6 years for the brand. 5.5 years for the brand.
So they have been struggling. It seems like sales have declining, 3% sales decline this past year, I believe. It's been struggling. Yeah. So this CMO here, Megan Imbris, has this new spot here with a kind of a positioning for complete wellness. So what do we see today?
The joy. They're leaning into the joy of it, and they bring on the heated rivalry. It was a little bit of a tease, I would say, and the comment section, it all went nuts, and 140,000 likes I saw on the video alone. Someone in the comments are saying they're awakening an audience. I would say they're trying to awaken the Peloton brand.
Awaken, I love
because they just don't have an identity. Coming out of COVID, Peloton hitched its wagon to being like the COVID in your house, and I think since then that's a big reason why they've had 5 marketing leaders since 2020. They just haven't clung on to anything to be a post-pandemic identity.
I kind of see what they're doing here. It's not like the grind set, like people sweating. You got, I believe the actor it's a Shane Hollander is the person in this, and people are saying in our office that I'm more like Shane, and Jack, you're more like Ilya.
I have no comment on that. I can't speak on that. I've never seen Heated Rivalry, but I understand.
Well, we get a
the
lot
fan
of
base.
comments that we're just like these two.
And yeah, listen,
I've
I
never
would
seen
gladly
it, but
take that.
I mean,
gladly take that.
they're hockey stars here, but you seen Shane Hollander in this ad. He's not like over sweating, overworking himself. He's enjoying the experience.
Yeah, I envision Aura and Peloton partnership coming soon, Gino. Come on, makes sense. It only makes sense. Next story, Allbirds is now an AI company, of course.
Yeah.
Of course they are, Gino. Allbirds. You remember the shoe brand that just sold for $39 million?
You mean the GPU company?
Yes. Yeah. The Conan O'Brien, the podcast meme. Remember that?
Yeah.
Allbirds, the GPU company. They're going in the GPU as a service. If you are a normal person, you have no idea what that means. Pretty much what Allbirds is doing here is they've just completely changed the business model. They've sold off the shoe and brand assets to American Exchange Group for $39 million, and then they raised $50 million to just cash in on the AI bubble, pretty much. They're gonna buy AI computing hardware and then lease it to AI companies that would need that power. So it has nothing to do with shoes. If you try and find an angle here that they can lean on their past experience making shoes for this, you won't find it. They're literally just trying to cash in.
Well, weren't
on
they
the
like
gold
a
rush.
Silicon Valley startup? Like, you lived in San Francisco. Do you know the lore of Allbirds?
Yeah, I had 2 pairs of Allbirds.
So yeah, does that kind of environment of where they were founded?
Yeah, I'm sure they have
that impact?
connections.
Yeah, that was.
I'm sure they have plenty of great connections for starting this company, which is great. But they're calling it Newbird AI. They've got $50 million of funding. Gino, are we officially at AI as a bubble? Can we announce it? Because this feels like one of those moments where we look back 20 years from now and we do you remember when Allbirds just became an AI company?
This might be the mark of it, Jack. I think that's a great point here. But what is it? So it's like is it all these companies that are all these like ChatGPTs, Anthropics, they need GPU?
Yeah,
so
they need computing power. They need like the chips or whatever. And so Newbirds is positioning themselves as like the middleman.
It's just crazy.
To lease out.
It's absurd.
It's
absurd. Can I buy a pair anymore? No more?
Yeah, you can. You
Okay.
can. Yeah, they're gonna. I think the Allbirds brand is continuing.
Oh, good.
You can buy Allbird brands. Those become a collector's item. I got the AI company shoes now.
I like that.
Next one, speaking of AI, Gino, Runway AI, their ad is going viral. If you've been online, if you're in like the advertising and marketing world over the last week, I'm sure you've seen this ad. Do you want to play it, JR, and we can just like let it run and then we'll talk about it? Yeah, you can see it now. But it's an interesting one, Gino. What'd you say as it's playing now? You can't hear it, but your reaction to it when you saw it.
Yeah.
Here we go. Now I can hear it.
You want
Tu as laissé ta tasse tiède sur l'évier. Un cheveu blond qui casse sur mon pull décousu d'hier. Ton livre ouvert en travers, une phrase soulignée, restée. C'est parfois se taire, tu l'as lu, tu es parti quand même.
So what'd you think? Because people like it. People are loving it online.
These ads, these AI competition ads are re-sparking my love for the creative industry.
Interesting.
I am obsessed with what I'm seeing. I think so. For the context here, Runway, it just put out a competition as well. We saw Luma had a competition.
Yeah.
Now Runway had a competition. Spec ad. This was made in an afternoon. This alone got 27 million views since launching, 2.4 million likes, 470,000 shares. I am obsessed with it. It's all about the concept, nothing getting in the way. No client approvals, no need for extensive skill sets, and no need for big budgets. It's all idea, and I freaking love it.
Taste and vision. JR, can you get us back to the Instagram reel and go into the comments section, if possible? Because I kind of wanted to talk about this. AI sentiment, I think, is changing quicker than I thought.
And I think in the industry,
In the industry and consumer as well.
I'm not sure about that. I'm sure it is because of
look at the
how
comment
viral this
section.
went. Yeah.
But like one of the comments was it got 180,000 likes and it was like great use of AI.
Great.
We can't see the comments, but that's fine.
These companies are doing the right thing, and like that's what they should be doing, focusing on the good idea. That's what it's all
Well,
about.
Runway, I believe, was co-founded by a former ad agency person, right?
I believe so. I would have to double check on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I know the CCO worked in agency.
Oh, the CCO, yeah. But even having a CCO that comes from an advertising background,
Yes.
and then also with Luma, they're working with ad agency Dayan to help like create that campaign of the competition.
Yep.
And they're doing it the right way, whereas all of the predecessors before that, like your VOs, your Nano Bananas, have done just like, in my opinion, a shit job of appealing to the people that they should be selling to by saying that like their app is going to replace them.
Right.
These Runway and Luma are doing a great job because probably they have the creative advertising agency people in-house to say, stop attacking your audience and start working with them to show them that these tools can help them in their creative process, not replace their creative process.
I love it. Well said, Jack.
Great. Well, that was a 2-minute drill.
It's always
What a blast.
fun.
What a blast. Always a pleasure.
We'll do that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. Thanks for joining in. If you're just joining in now, we're about to get into our guest segments here. Our next guest here is Carl Johnson, co-founder of Anomaly. Anomaly, Jack, when I read the client list or clients that they've worked with in the past, you can't deny this is a dream agency to work with. It's Starbucks, Bud Light, B-Dubs, Chevy, Visa.
Yeah.
20 plus Super Bowls commercials in the past couple years. It's incredible work that they're doing here. And they just announced that they have opened a new Paris office. They have offices all over the world too. So we're going to talk with the co-founder of Anomaly, Carl Johnson. Carl, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, guys.
Carl, it's great to have you. How's everything going? How are you feeling right now?
I'm on a childish adrenaline high from yesterday's announcement of opening in Paris. Just the goodwill that swept towards the guys was tremendous.
I mean, you've opened plenty of offices. Does this, is this business as usual? Just another office opening? What makes this different?
Well, firstly, none of them are business as usual. This is different though. This is one that, to be honest, didn't come because of some phenomenal strategic plan. We were looking around for talent. Elite talent. Not very many people can really stand out. And we bumped into these guys in Paris, and I just thought they were so good. We're going to open around them. The market is interesting, it's creative, it's innovative, all that kind of thing. But the decisive factor, I just thought I was talking to superstars. So there's no way we don't go and get behind them.
Interesting. So, was there like a new client win that like sparked this search for Paris, or did you find these people and say, well, I like these guys, let's open this shop up? Can you talk about the impetus for this?
Yeah, we're always looking. So like wherever we're not, we're always having a quick look. We're looking in South America, we're looking in parts of Asia, we're looking in the Middle East, but we're looking to get a fuller footprint in Europe. So, and we obviously got Germany and the UK, but we wanted to go in France for some time, but it wasn't a serious focus on France. I just happened to always have an open brief for elite talent, because you cannot believe the difference that really special people can make. So, and then when we met them, it was game over. It was like, that's it. Don't talk to anybody else. Don't interview anybody else. Get going. We don't have any clients, but you don't need much to start an office. You need the will, the belief, the talent, and the ambition. And that's what we did.
To me, that's fascinating because I think we hear a lot that agencies will open offices because of a new client win.
Right.
Like you win a big client, and they're like, well, we kind of want to have people in a presence there. But it feels like this is kind of a different approach than maybe what we're accustomed to. Is that what you see, Carl, or are we just kind of missing it? Is this more widespread than we see?
No, you are. I would say this, wouldn't I? But no, I think most people are as you described. But our view is our people, even if they're working in Paris, they're available for a brief in LA. They were available for a brief in Shanghai. I've always hated the sort of cultural situation where one office doesn't like another one of their sister offices. I want all of our people to like each other, want to work with each other, learn from each other. And so therefore, the decisive thing, I think it's pretty rare. Most people don't do what I'm doing, but you get to the point where you go, I've done it for 20 years and it works, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Right.
And they were so special, it just jumped straight to the front of the queue.
Yeah, I feel like you probably have such a great gut feeling for this. Do you? I mean,
Yeah.
that's got to be a big part of it. It sounds like,
It is.
yeah,
Yeah.
like having that gut feeling.
Yeah, you have to have. I think I've got good instincts. We've all made tons of mistakes in the past, okay, but I've got good instincts, and then the belief that if they're good enough, we will grow. I will find the clients. I don't want to try and find a client and then staff it. I want to find the people because that's rarer. Then we'll go and tell them. Like you said, we have a tremendous client list. Some of them might want to expand further across Europe, or we might have got new expertise from Mehdi, who's the new chief exec. So it's a combination of instincts. Also, you just get used to making loads of decisions over 22 years. You get used to the fact they don't all work. You don't tear yourself in knots because one didn't work. You just go, okay, it didn't work, but I won't do that again. Judgment on people, we have a pretty high strike rate. And leaders, we have a very strong strike rate. I did an analysis the other day. I asked our HR people, I said, how many people at Anomaly have been at Anomaly for 10 years or more? And it was 50.
Wow.
So I got 50 people with a decade or more. And which means when we sit around, there's shorthands, everybody knows who's good, they know where they can lean into each other. So these guys are those guys.
Yeah, it's like you have 50 people who've had 10 years of decision making around Anomaly. I feel like that, because you hear about that a lot, is like having the organization be able to speak to the vision and having more people. It just creates more surface area versus like if you, Carl, had to always be the person that was explaining the vision because you didn't have anyone else that had been there long enough.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. The other thing I think that helps is we're pretty principled. Like we have fundamental beliefs that we keep referring back to. So, for example, I knew early on that because of the point you just raised, if it all sat in my head, it isn't going to work. We won't be able to get very big. If we write it down, so we wrote down a list of the criteria we'd need to pass before we accepted a new client. You get invitations to pitch all the time. Which ones do you say yes to? We decline a third of the offers we get because we've ruled them out on one of the criteria. So we wrote down, well, what are the criteria? And then that's just a great process. So for example, the number one criteria on our list is, do we respect and like the people? Because if you don't like the clients and respect the clients, it's not going to last. Do you want more of that product in the world? Or are there some products you don't want more in the world of? And then the killer question, can you honestly, when no one's listening, can you honestly fix their problem? Because if you lie and pretend you can and you can't, you get fired anyway.
Right.
So we have multiple things like that to do with what we believe in, what we will do, what we won't do. And then people can more easily absorb written things like that. I don't think we're brilliant at that. I think we're quite good at the management side of it. But I think we're better leaders than managers, to be honest.
I like that.
Just a big difference.
I want to ask about Paris specifically. When you were doing your homework and you were weighing the option to open up this office, hopefully you did an analysis of some sort. What did you learn about the Paris creative ecosystem, the landscape there, the opportunities? What made Paris appealing? Or did you put all that to the side and say, just these two guys,
You can be honest here, Carl, that you don't have to lie and say that you did any analysis. I want you to know that.
I didn't do any analysis.
Come on, Carl.
No, we didn't. No, the truth
You
is,
think Carl's doing analysis? You think he's getting into like the spreadsheets of like the demographics of Paris?
It's not about money. It's more, or the size of the market. Because I always assume that if we're better than people, we won't have a problem with that. We'll be taking their business if we're better. So the focus should be on the people and being better legitimately. We, of course, did some research. We talked to a lot of people. One of the things we were really careful of was just not being cocky Brits or cocky Americans. You're entering, you need to respect, so you need to come in with humility. So I would be very happy, for example, if we were the most popular agency in Paris, rather than the most obnoxious. So it's to do with understanding the culture, finding the talent, realizing that, to be honest, we do have a different model in terms of what we count as creativity. We have a wider aperture on what we include in creativity. So I think that we felt that there was a gap for something different, because not a lot has changed in France. It's really good, but it isn't very wide. And so we feel like we can go in there and we can be selling documentaries, we can be selling product innovation, we can be starting getting paid on royalties. We can shake it up from just a conventional ad agency. So we're offering something new. And we just felt that although the overall culture is very creative, the specific agency culture, there is room for us to come and do something different. And so we wanted local knowledge, a different model, and the belief that there's enough business there to keep one agency happy, no problem.
I wanted to ask about the question of talent. I think that like junior talent in particular, mid-level talent is something that gets talked about a lot in the industry. I saw something recently, David Ogilvy was famous for making the comparison that he wants Ogilvy to be like a hospital in the sense that hospitals do two things. They treat patients and then they educate the next great doctors and practitioners. What's your reaction to that, Carl? Because in a lot of ways, it feels like maybe the industry has lost that sense of training and having that be the focus on the talent, on the people.
Yeah.
But from what you're saying so far, maybe Anomaly still has that as a main top priority.
Yeah, I would say, in using another analogy, I'd say we were the sports training fields. Because we're a team, B, we're high performance focused, C, we're going to look at every individual to work out how they could be better, which could be emotional, practical. We're not doing it to, be good people, especially. That's not the motivation. But what does happen, because we do value the talent so much, people end up feeling really valued. But that wasn't our going in point. It's the consequence rather than the objective. But I think the main thing, the closest analogy for me is a sports team on training ground midweek before games. We're breaking it down. We're talking to them what they can get better at. We make sure that the best players are on the field. We work out who the captains are, and we focus and are ambitious. So I do think it is a fundamental piece of our thinking, though, that we believe in decent people. We will not tolerate scumbags. There'll be no bullying, no arrogance, the least ego we can possibly allow for. And so we take great pride, for example, in seeing people grow. I love the fact that Frankie Rodriguez is the chief exec of New York, and he joined as an account supervisor. And over I think it's 17 years, he's been promoted and promoted and promoted. And that's a great example to people that you can stay and your job moves if you just deliver. And so I think we try and be kind. Some of it is tough love, like it would be with a sportsman,
Right.
or a sportswoman. You'd be saying, listen, you're better than this. I know. If we could just improve this, you'll be able to expand your ability to contribute.
Well, I was going to ask that, Carl. Would you consider yourself more? There's like the players coach, the players manager, or kind of like the other spectrum where it is more tough love, best for the team, just kind of the tactician, if you will. Where do you put your managing style on that spectrum?
Player manager. Like some footballers can't retire because they can't get off the field. That would be me. But I've got to make sure I'm good enough to get in the team. But no, I just, when I was a kid, I played an awful lot of sport all day, every day, anything. But it was always team sports because I like the idea of a collective mission, a collective ambition, and then what it takes together to succeed, knowing that sometimes players are going to get dropped and someone's going to get put in ahead of them. So but I'm a player manager.
Got it.
I'm not, I prefer to understand and feel exactly what they do. I can transmit confidence. I can spot when people are feeling less confident or vulnerable. So I can pick people up. But I like to play still. So I do work on clients, the same as anybody else. I get right in the nitty gritty.
Yeah,
I
that's
some people a lot.
that's pretty interesting. How much do you spend? How much time do you spend? Like, if you had to, cut out like being in the
Yeah.
work, what percentage of your week would you say is doing that?
I would say between, I'd say 45%.
Wow.
Wow. Does that surprise you, Gino? Based
Yeah,
on like all the
yeah. 45%. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of getting in there.
That's getting in there. And
What were you? What?
I mean,
What was your background,
I-
Carl? Were you a creative, account person, strategist? What was your?
I was an account person
Yeah.
because I am, it may not surprise you, I am sort of a control freak. Um, and I love getting on my hands and knees and looking at the detail of charts because I know in the end sometimes you lose because of a minuscule bad choice of a single word. I love new business because it's, if you think about it, it's the craft of your profession combined with a sporting scenario.
Oh yeah.
I like that we have an opponent. I like we have someone to beat in a game, if you like, that's got a date. So if you combine the new business with the businesses I look after, it's about 45%. And I try and do because I also think doing that is teaching in effect. It's teaching and learning. I learn how good we actually are on a daily basis, and occasionally can pass over an exam, something to someone else that helps them get better. But I think it's more fun.
Yeah.
It's more fun.
Oh,
The
yeah.
last place I'm going to be is in a suit with a calculator. I'm not that person.
Yeah, well, for the next office opening, if you do need a suit with a calculator, I think
your guy.
Gino might be your guy for
Yeah,
it.
I can make some reports.
Yeah.
Get you some
Excellent.
reports.
Gino, anything else from you?
No, Jack. Carl, thank you so much for coming on. Pleasure talking with you. Congrats on the new Paris agency office opening. We wish you all the best.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. It was terrifying and an honor to be invited.
Yeah, you
love
crushed
that.
it, Carl. That was
Crushed
fantastic.
it.
Thank you so much for joining.
See ya.
That was Carl Johnson, founding partner and executive chairman at Anomaly. That was money.
He's great.
That was a great.
I mean, he's got to be great for the agency to be great for 20 plus years. Makes sense.
Right. The gut instinct. That to me is the gut instinct part. 45% of his time he's in there. He's in the work.
In there like swimwear. All right.
Yes.
Our next guest here is Patrick Coffey, reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Jack, do you want to give context?
I'm almost like coming into this. My first question, I was going to say, explain
What's
the
going on?
NBCUniversal versus Nielsen beef to me like I'm 5 years old.
Oh, for
was
sure.
kind of like how I'm going into it. But
It's all about measurement.
It's all about measurement. Patrick Coffey, reporter at the Wall Street Journal, has done a great job covering the industry, and I think covering the media measurement side better than anyone I'm really seeing out there. And I appreciate his reporting because I am so foreign to this world, I would say, and I think it is a very complicated part of the business. But most recently, NBCUniversal executives calling out Nielsen for some of the ways that they're measuring and how that impacts the media company and the business side. That's where I'll end because I'll let Patrick explain the rest of it. But joining now, Patrick Coffey, reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Patrick, how are you doing?
I'm good. Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
I think Jack had a really good first question he wanted to ask you.
Patrick, can you explain to me this NBCUniversal versus Nielsen situation like I'm a 5-year-old?
So we know who Nielsen is, right? They're the biggest name in measurement for decades. They dominated when it came to TV ratings. And to grossly oversimplify, they're one of the main providers that advertisers and media agencies use when they are negotiating deals with media companies for ad inventory, right? They'll say, okay, your car client wants to reach this demographic at this time, and we have this new show coming up that does this, and we have X number of viewers, therefore our CPMs are going to equal this. So for years, though, well, I should say that their biggest clients are the legacy media names. They are, Disney, Paramount, NBCUniversal, and for years the clients have said, your numbers aren't right. Our internal numbers are higher. We need you to do better. And that's, for context, they are paying Nielsen quite a bit for this data. It's the contracts are in the 9 figures, so they're upwards of like $100 million that they're paying for this stuff. So at this point, as we get into like the streaming versus linear battle, or some would say that's already over, they're saying that Nielsen overcounts streaming viewership at the expense of the media companies like themselves. And last month, I reported some leaked numbers that Nielsen was going to release that seemed to maybe kind of support this argument. And like to make the previous point, this is not the first time that media executives have targeted Nielsen. Like last year, before the NFL season started, the NFL's head of data analytics said Nielsen is undercounting the viewers of our games by like millions of people. But the NBC executive I talked to went a little bit further and saying that not only do the numbers undercount linear viewers, but that this damages the valuation of the company over time because when their numbers are a little lower, they have less leverage to negotiate ad deals. This affects their revenue, and the revenue is valuation is a multiple of revenue, so that when analysts see this, they might say to shareholders, you should sell your stock because they're not doing well. And that like over the long term, this affects their ability to hire people to produce new content, and that even they might go so far as to compel companies to explore mergers and acquisitions. So that's kind of what this is all about. And NBC just went a little further than others have gone, especially in the recent past. A lot of this is all about something called the Gauge, which is a report that Nielsen releases every month. They've been doing it for about 5 years. And they kind of just take the data that they collect and they create a narrative out of it. You guys, I'm sure, heard last year when they reported about a year ago, they reported that overall viewership on streaming platforms had surpassed linear TV for the first time.
Right.
And that really supports the industry narrative that traditional TV is in a death spiral. Netflix is the new Hollywood, YouTube is the new TV, etc. But Nielsen had to or chose to update the methodology that they use for these numbers recently because this sort of self-regulatory group told them, okay, guys, you're going to have to bring in a third-party objective survey organization in order to just improve your numbers that had really, they had had some problems during the pandemic. And then they agreed to add what's called big data to their initial panel. And but they went further than that. They brought in this survey, and they kind of warned clients that, okay, when we bring this in, you might see a little bit of a bump for the linear TV providers, for the broadcast companies, et cetera. But when the clients got the actual numbers, they had questions, especially the streamers, because they saw their numbers start to go down. And they were kind of like, okay, well, if we need an apples to apples comparison, like if you had been using the same methodology like last year, would our numbers have been lower last year? And so Nielsen was like, okay, we're going to delay this for a week because we need to make sure everything's a little better. And then I got the actual numbers. And what was so interesting about it was that we saw a total reversal of the trend. So we had streaming over linear by like 5 to 6 points, and it reversed. So we had then linear was back on top by about 5 to 6 points. And I think some of the executives kind of saw that as vindication, right? And so after we published our story, Nielsen then said, okay, so we're not gonna publish that specific report, and we're gonna delay this methodological change to the Gauge until the fall. And that I think kind of inspired a little bit more of this conversation. So let me tell you, like, here's a very specific example of where the argument goes. So like when someone watches a clip from a CBS show on YouTube, who should get the credit for that view? Should it be CBS or should it be YouTube? Nielsen says, for the Gauge at least, it should be YouTube. Though YouTube didn't produce that show. They didn't pay the talent. They didn't. I'm sure they have a distribution deal and an ad revenue deal with CBS. But the argument that the media executives make is like, okay, that's Nielsen kind of, or determining the winner based on, subjectively. And, that was, that argument has now spilled out into the public, essentially, is what's happened.
Wow. Okay, so there's a lot. There is a lot there, and I think that last example is so interesting to give that real life. Like, it gets so into the weeds. It gets so deep, but also because of the fact that for like linear, like Patrick, like it's CPM based in the sense like, yeah, if you have more viewers, you're gonna make more money because it all kind of comes down to a math equation. I'm sure it's more detailed than that, but is that kind of the same way that like linear still operates?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, these companies all have their own internal numbers, and they also use other providers. There's no single universal arbiter, but Nielsen is as close to that as you can get. So it's really just like the latest stage in a long running argument. That's what I would call it.
Yeah, because I mean that's because Nielsen. I can see the like this never ending third party verifying process. You know, like Nielsen is kind of like the third party because you don't, I guess I imagine like an advertiser, if you're the media company, you can't necessarily just report your numbers. And an advertiser is just gonna like take that as word. You want a third party data and measurement. And then now they're saying, okay, who's gonna be the third party to verify Nielsen's data and measurement? And then you just create this chain.
Or more so of like, well, I don't like the way that Nielsen is measuring because our numbers don't look good, so I'm gonna go to this other third party.
Right.
So I was gonna ask you, Patrick, what are the alternatives to Nielsen? Are they gaining traction, or is Nielsen still the gold standard?
Yeah, there are a number of competitors. I think most prominently would be like Video Amp. There's one called Samba TV, iSpot. They all kind of offer an alternative to Nielsen, but they're not as large. And you mostly see the media companies kind of experimenting with them. And there's no one really, there's no one who's like a direct comparison to Nielsen at this point.
Yeah. And Nielsen, they make a majority of their revenue from media companies paying for access to the data?
Yeah, particularly legacy media companies. They also work with all the streamers. You know, they work with Netflix and YouTube and Roku and all that stuff. And some of those companies like, Roku help provide some of the new data that they're using.
Right. And so you can imagine, I'm just thinking about like potential conflicts of like, if Nielsen is getting paid by these media companies to access the data, you can imagine, you can think about potential conflicts that might exist there. But if they're also getting paid by the streamers, I think it probably isn't as simple as that.
You're saying like there's influence?
Yeah, I mean, if I was getting it, this is Jack talking. This is me talking. If I was getting paid by someone and they were paying for data, and depending on how my data and measurement and my methodologies came out, it would affect their business either positively or negatively. Wouldn't I want to have my methodologies have the one that benefits who's paying me the most?
The most.
Patrick, is that like that? Me talking again. I'm not saying anyone's actually acting like this, but is that like a concern for media companies or alternatives?
I think they are. So nobody disputes that streaming is growing quickly. People are moving over to streaming, right? But there are also still a lot of people who watch old school TV, even though, and that's one reason that you see so many like pharma ads, because those audiences tend to skew older. They tend to skew, poorer, for lack of a better word. So I think what this really speaks to is the impossibility of having a single standard for measurement as our media consumption continues to fragment. But it's sort of consolidating into some of the big players who are getting bigger, like YouTube, like Amazon, like Netflix, because they all know who's watching what on their platforms. But are they just going to open their data vaults and say, okay, advertiser, okay, media, okay, measurement firm, we're just going to give you access to all this information? No, that's gold for them. That's just not going to happen. That's my big takeaway. But it's, part of it is when you look at the panel, it's kind of, it's sort of like, even though they do it differently now, the way it works is they'll mail you a letter and be like, do you want to be part of Nielsen's panel? Like, we'll pay you $15 a month. And in the old days, they would mail you this box and you would like put it on top of your TV and connect it to your cable box, and it would just record everything that you watch. Whereas now it's a smaller device. You're supposed to like carry it with you wherever you go, and it uses audio in part to record what you're watching. And then like if you watch something on your tablet, you're supposed to plug it into your tablet. And to me, that's a good symbol of how difficult it is to measure everything now.
Oh my goodness.
Right. Whereas like the YouTubes of the world can just do that without.
Yeah.
They just have that.
They have all of it. Yeah.
It's way more. It is probably, like in my opinion, probably be way more accurate, and at least in theory, if you're asking people to carry around another.
What do they call that? A walled garden when it's.
Yes.
Yeah. That's why they call it. That's why they call it a walled
That's
garden.
my last. I guess that would be my last question. I would love to hear explain to us the walled garden situation, and then how it affects measurement and broader marketing.
Well, it's just like, like I was saying, YouTube, as more and more people view YouTube, that essentially gives YouTube more leverage when it comes to measurement, because they just have a better perspective on consumer behavior. And it's their choice how much of that data they share with the public, how much of it they share with the creators, and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the points that people make, that the larger Nielsen clients make, is that this gauge, this monthly report that we talked about, is a very effective marketing tool, not just for Nielsen, but also for the streamers. Like last week when YouTube put out a press release about the Brandcast, which is their New Fronts event, and they listed all the creators who were going to be there. They had a line that said something to the effect of like, YouTube is the new face of media. We're the #1 viewed platform. And where did they link in that line? They linked back to the gauge.
Oh, it's a source of truth.
Yes. So because they can't. You can't have YouTube saying YouTube is the
gauge said it.
Yeah, the gauge
I got to
said
get
it.
my hands on a gauge.
Well, you see it, man. Just subscribe to the email. They release it every month. And the most
So then I can give them my data.
Well, it's not. You don't give them your data for that. That's just what they.
Now Nielsen's going to create its own walled garden.
Yeah, this has been fantastic, Patrick. I mean, so interesting to hear how deep this goes, and I will be using that, if it's okay with you. I will be using that example that you gave around CBS on YouTube, who gets the credit, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. That's a contentious issue, and I don't know about you, but I watch a fair amount of YouTube, so.
100%. Same. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Patrick, thanks so much for joining Report at the Wall Street Journal. Thank you for all the great reporting as well, and keeping everyone updated on the situation. NBCUniversal and Nielsen, data, measurement, media companies. It's all super fascinating. Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks for having me on.
That was Patrick Coffey.
He's great. That was a masterclass.
Really, truly, like
we need that. We need experts.
You need that because there's so
commentary.
much like out there,
yeah.
And depending on where you get it from, you can go down this rabbit hole quickly. But to
He's
have
the freaking Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, he's the Wall Street Journal. He's the real deal, and I mean, he just does such a great job of explaining it.
Yeah, he's gonna be. We'd love to have him on more.
But where do you land on all that? Because now that you know what you know,
listen,
it goes so deep.
I'm in this mix now. I got to figure out I'm in the controversy.
Because
I don't know where this all leads. I got to chase this.
I know, because you can go. This is what I'm talking about. Like conflict of interest on conflict of interest on conflict. Like there's so many conflicts of interest that there's no conflicts of interest.
You know what? You might just at the end of the day, we might just have to go with what Nielsen says. Because nobody's going to figure it out.
Nobody else has.
And Nielsen's has the brand, and we might have to just be like, we have no other option. There's nothing else we can do. Whatever Nielsen says.
They need to do something to figure out how to get, because YouTube is becoming less of like a.
Well, does the government have to get involved? Like government intervention? Is that what's necessary?
We're bringing the National Guard to figure out. I think we should bring.
No, what's it? Space Force.
NASA, the next Artemis mission is going to be going and figuring out data measurement. Well, Gino, exciting. We go from media measurement now to the frontier of social media strategies here, Gino, with short form entertainment. And no one better to speak with us about this than Paul Marvuch. He is a legend, and he is the co-founder of Cousin Labs, who has been creating fan pages in partnership with brands about the brands. You've probably seen the videos if you've seen Arby's, the Arby's boys. You got one for Spirit Airlines. It's really fascinating. We'll dig into it more. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Paul, pumped to talk with you today. Can you explain what you're up to with these fan accounts for us to understand?
Yeah, of course, happy to. And I also wanted to say that you missed part of my bio, Jack.
Which part? Let's get into it. We can go back and forth on this. Let's hash it out.
Early supporter and early advertiser of Breaking and Entering. By the way, this is not a sponsored.
This is not a sponsored segment. I forgot to mention that friend of the program, Paul Marvuch.
Friend of the program.
If for the real ones that remember, I think when back in the day, I forget when this was. It must have been like a year ago when we did the 60-second news, and Paul and Cousin Labs sponsored the show to help try and find someone to fill a role. Paul, update us. Did you fill the role? And remind us of the role and an update there.
Yeah, we filled the role. I think I was more just excited to be part of your guys' story, and it's been amazing to see you guys grow and like evolve the formats. And so it's an honor to be on the show today in a non-sponsored format.
Again, this is not sponsored because of the fact that I remember we talked about this honestly early when helped getting involved and partnering with us, and of course we stayed in touch, going from that to being now friends. And you were kind of speaking about how you were doing this thing, and it was probably a little bit more hush hush at that time because of the fact that it was a new thing and you're figuring it out. But we've seen a lot of success, and you're talking about how you're making these fan pages and accounts, and they're getting some serious steam online. And I think let's start there. What's going on? Maybe fill the people in.
Yeah, I think very simply put, I mean, Cousin Labs builds and operates organic creator-led channels on behalf of brands. We came up with the idea, Shane and I came up with the idea for Cousin Labs as a result of seeing how marketing teams were not building social strategies around algorithmic distribution. In other words, the way that creators approach the algorithm is not being reflected inside marketing teams today. You guys know this probably pretty well based on how you build and operate Breaking and Entering, but it is a real skill that is missing inside these companies. That is a direct result of how much time and attention we spend on these platforms.
So it's interesting. So like in other words, the way that like a brand might have approached their social media strategy pre-major algorithm was like you have your brand account and you post once or twice a day, maybe once or twice a week to give updates, and then also every now and again whoever runs the brand page will get into the comment section of like other posts. And so what you see now, explain to us, how do creators approach the algorithm, and how does it differ from how brands have been in the past?
Yeah, and please stop me if I describe anything incorrectly, since you guys are creators yourselves. But we are in the post-follower era, right? Followers do not equal distribution anymore, and this has been the case since at least 2022, when Reels decided to more or less copy the TikTok algorithm and prioritize small accounts, right? You don't have to have any followers to get reach on these platforms. One of the partners that we work with is, Spirit Airlines, and our Not Spirit account, on our 5th video that we posted, we received 6 million views. There are no followers on the page at that point. And so the algorithm is deciding who sees what based on interest, and creators that are competing on these platforms know that very well, and they are learning from it. And so the key skill gap, I would say, inside marketing teams today is, can you reliably generate views? Can you reliably read and understand what performed, why, and iterate? And I think that's what separates the brands that are winning today from the ones that are sort of, posting into the void and, behaving in a way that you're describing that, worked in 2018 or 2019, but is no longer the case.
So let's talk about specifically then this in action there, either from Arby's or Spirit. What was the brief to them? Why did they want to work with you all? What were they trying to achieve? More followers, more views on social media? What was the brief to you guys?
I think it comes down to there are two types of brands today, specifically consumer brands, that have either acknowledged that the world has changed and they are evolving, or those who have not. And what I mean by that is, when I was at TikTok, we used to look at, or when I was at TikTok, they looked at content as a supply and demand chart, right? If you think about content in a supply and demand way, it's kind of weird. I don't think anybody thinks about content that way, but there is a infinite amount of supply in theory. More creators, more people want to be creators than doctors and lawyers today, and competition has never been higher. And the amount of demand, you could argue, has peaked or is plateauing. There are different arguments around peak social media and whether or not we've already reached that point. So the amount of attention that people can devote to these platforms is finite. There are only 24 hours in a day. You only have so much free time in the day. And so the brands that have recognized that understand that it has never been harder to compete on social. You can't win attention by paying for views. And paying for views is no longer, working either. I know you guys just talked to the reporter about all the changes at Nielsen and,
right.
Television. In many ways, we are today existing in that tension of not being able to buy attention and not wanting to compete for views organically because it's really hard. And so the brands that we work with, we're not trying to convince them that they should be doing this. They've already come to that conclusion.
Nice.
And they've come to that conclusion and they've said, we need to meet our audience where they're at. And the audience is inviting us to have a conversation. And we need to change the way that our brand is being perceived. And the best way to do that is to join the conversation and not shut the door. And I think most brands are talking about tone of voice and brand guidelines, and they've already lost before they even made a video.
So then where do you go from there? They come to you, they have this mindset, you're like, great, let's create this thing. What is the thing?
Our pitch is that there is more than just one brand account. In fact, the way that we should be thinking about reaching your audience is reaching your audience through many accounts. In many ways, if you fast forward, what we might be doing is, reinventing television for social media, because the accounts are very audience specific. And so you need to be approaching content through the lens of the algorithm, which is interest-based and which is audience-based. And that fundamentally breaks the single brand account approach. And so our pitch is, let's do that, because you have a varied audience and your brand is not just one thing. And you are probably trying to squeeze too many messages into one video, into one account. Let your brand breathe. Have a little bit of fun. Your brand means different things to different people, and your audience is talking about you in certain ways on social media that are not reflected in your brand tracker. They're not reflected in your content guidelines. Should we ignore them, or should we jump in and have a little fun?
Yeah, so this is, to me, this kind of like speaks to it's the content ecosystem. And I like what you said there, letting the brand breathe and covering it with different, especially now, like you don't need a lot of followers to have a lot of influence is kind of I think that's the tension. And everyone looks at the follower count and they think of it as like this metric that's like the end all be all. For you all, is there a metric that you're paying attention to when you're creating these videos and then iterating off of them?
Yes, it is. How often am I invited onto the Breaking Entering show?
We are clipping that for sure. That is going into the media kit immediately and then getting sent back to you to ask the sponsor.
No, I think it's a great question because if you think about it, followers are a trailing indicator of success. Followers are a scoreboard. It's not telling you what's happening in the game today. The reason for that is you're not interacting with accounts on Reels or TikTok. You interact with videos. And you guys know this for sure. You know, what % of people convert from videos to looking at your account?
Very little.
Very low.
Yeah.
You know, I would say that the obsession with the grid is one of the biggest issues in marketing today. And so for us, the most important unit of measurement is the video and whether you can consistently get views, whether you can consistently learn from it. You know, getting a viral hit is great. What are you doing about that? And how are you going to do that, 10, 20 more times? That's the skill. And that's the unit of measurement that we care about. Specifically, you could look at median view count. Are we getting better every single week? Versus, hey, we got this many views. Great. Can you do it again? Can you do it again? Can you do it again? That's the same question that you guys ask yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think the hard part about all of this is posting on social media is really hard for the ego.
Big time.
So it's a little bit easier to just avoid the whole thing, right? Like what happens when you guys post something and it flops?
I punch myself in the mouth. I can't look at myself in the mirror.
I delete it when Jack's not watching. And I blame Jack. No, I just learned something that we need to start for our weekly meetings of the minds is start to change what we're tracking. I'm going to change it to median view count week by week and see if we're growing. And if we're not growing, they get yelled at.
Well,
how do you motivate the team? Actually,
there you go.
A quick one-on-one.
Yeah, we're going to do it. This just became a coaching call.
Hey, how do you motivate your team?
I'm going to start charging now. What is it? 1209.
How do you motivate your team when they're sucking? Like if they don't increase the median week over week growth or the views. So like, what do you do? How do you bounce back from that?
Yeah, I think an underrated signal that you can also get from algorithmic platforms is comments. Quality comments is something to look at as an indicator of success for your audience-specific strategy. If you're getting good comments and your views are not there, you're on the right path.
Like that.
If you're not getting any quality comments, you might have to reach out to us and we can talk.
Yeah, because you're that kind of. I guess like that boils down to creating something that moves someone enough to want to engage in a way where they want to participate in the conversation. Like you want to be able to create a space where you're encouraging, or you're taking a viewpoint, like in the video itself. Like you have to take a side, essentially. And people will probably assume that means taking a drastic side, but it can be something as trivial or as dumb as just like, if it's a comedy video, like you just make a joke and you take a side on the joke. Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest thing that you can do is if you're a brand is just pick one audience and try to make content for that audience. Try to do it for 1 quarter, try to do it for 2 quarters. Can you actually do that? If you can't reach one audience that you think is part of your brand, there are probably much bigger issues, that you need to face.
I like that. And then is there anything within like each specific video that you're looking at? So you said median view count, across the week, but specific videos, are you looking at watch time? You said comments, quality comments. Are those kind of the 2 big ones for you all? Shares, I think I hear people talk about.
Yeah, I think, in some of the more recent changes in the algorithm, especially on TikTok and Instagram last year, something that's also underrated that people don't tend to look at is at the video level, you can see, retention rate. How long are people watching the content and where are they dropping off? I mean, most of the drop off still tends to be, in the first second or two. Mm-hmm. I often say that you have like a microsecond now to capture somebody's attention. It used to be like the 3-second rule. Now I just call it the screenshot rule. If you don't immediately get somebody's attention, it's going to be obviously very hard. And that's not a unique insight. I'm not the first person to ever share that. But I think that is an underrated thing. But more broadly, I think it's looking at the entire effort that you have and seeing how else people are talking about your brand and whether or not you are participating in that conversation. Oftentimes, brands are trying to create conversations that people do not want to have. And so I think you can kind of obsess about the video level, that sort of stuff. A lot of the hard work that has to happens before you ever pick up the camera. It happens with picking a lane and saying, who is this video for? Or who is this account for? Who do we want to talk to? And then using those signals that I talked about to understand whether or not you're actually consistently reaching that person.
My concern.
And then what do you want to do with that information? You can double down on it. You can avoid it. You know, there's lots of things you can do. But that process in and of itself is fundamentally missing.
Well, now my concern here, Paul, is I think my worry is that now we've just spawned everyone in the world is going to now make a fan page for their brand.
I'm gonna make a Jack fan page.
But to that point, how much of this is like format versus insight? Because I think what a lot of social teams maybe make the mistake of is seeing a format that works and copying the format, assuming that's really the reason why content works. You're kind of explaining that the work actually begins at the forefront. Like maybe you're doing the fan pages because there's a specific reason why that format works for the goals that you're trying to accomplish or the audience that you're talking to. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would say everything is downstream of research and insights. I think there is a responsibility of the marketing organization to action those insights, you know, through social that I don't think is happening in a big way. The reason why I think goes back a little bit to the ego. It's one thing to read your brand tracker and pull out some qualitative insights, and it's another thing to search your brand on TikTok and see somebody like explain how it changed their life or tell you that they hate the brand. It's very visceral. And I think beginning there is the most important part. The formats are secondary to that. The formats are how the best creators today approach social media, because what they're trying to do is identify things that they can iterate over time. And that's how we approach it in the exact same way. And so looking at formats and copying formats is not a strategy, it's a tactic. It's like something it's like an outcome of the research and insights, if that makes sense. And so what you're doing is you're repeating something that started from a very different place. And so you're probably solving for the wrong problem if you're trying to copy a format.
Love it. Well, Paul, thanks so much for joining. Friend of the program. Thanks again. It's fascinating to hear about this on the frontier of social strategy. We'll be on the lookout. I'm sure you've got some fun stuff cooking. Hashtag scoop. If you ever are looking to do a scoop, Paul, we'll do it here live on the Breaking Entering show. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, guys, and feel free to add me to Gino's performance review meeting. I'm excited to talk about that.
Yes.
That is a great. Let's discuss.
Fridays 1 p.m. Anybody can come.
Fridays 1 p.m. It's open to. We should do it live.
We should do it live.
We should do it live.
We're gonna pull up the
People get
analytics.
upset. People get upset.
We can have people comment like, "You guys like fix this thing."
Yeah.
Like
Live stream.
Ellie, figure out the graphic.
Yeah.
Ellie's never made a mistake in her life, but she just said that's right. But Paul, yes, we'll talk.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for having me on the show, and hope to see you guys again very soon. Thank
Sounds
you.
great. Thanks, Paul.
Take care.
That was Paul Marvuch, the co-founder of Cousin Labs.
What a good episode today.
Great episode
If
today.
you're just
I
joining
learned
in
a lot.
now, you missed most of the show. Not gonna
I
lie.
would say you missed 95%.
But don't worry, we post the full show on Spotify and YouTube after this, and we'll be posting clips on our LinkedIn and our Instagram. It's all good. We'll catch you up.
How did the show go today, JR? How do you think it went? It was your second day. For those that don't know, Ross is in Copenhagen for God knows what reason. JR, how do you think it went today?
It was pretty good. I am not built like Ross, though. I had Thursday for about half the stream instead of Wednesday, and I caught it a little later, but I'm excited to have Ross back because there's a lot you got to think about.
Yeah, that's a way to own up to it, JR.
Thursday. I mean, some people wish it was Thursday. I'm sure.
I would say Thursday is a better day than Wednesday.
Yeah.
In JR's defense,
Yeah.
I don't hate that.
You might have just tricked. You might have just messed up the day.
Was the date the actual date correct, or was it?
Yeah, the actual date was correct. It's just it said Thursday instead of Wednesday.
I think we might be onto something there with a bit. Yeah. Like, what if we just made the weekday just completely wrong? Just Friday every day.
People up.
Friday every day.
That would screw me up.
See if anyone notices. It's almost like
It's a
a little
mindset,
bit of a
though.
rage bait move because you can just get someone to comment, automatic live stream comment.
Yeah, he said, look at the comments. The quality of comments. If people are really mad, that means they're paying attention.
Ellie, how do you think the show went?
I thought it was great. Just a huge, massive shout out to JR. He stepped up.
Oh.
This show does not run without him.
Well, you got the
so
producer
this
cam
is
going?
sick.
Oh, that's in the word. That's a lot to ask. Don't.
No,
let's
yeah.
not. Let's not ask
I'm on
questions
the
you don't
show.
want to know the answer
Quincy,
to.
how you feeling over there?
She said she's feeling great.
Feeling great.
Last night, Gino and I shout out to Byline. Byline.
Test 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I thought
Shout
the
out-
mic broke.
shout
Sorry,
out
Jack.
To Byline, our friend Goots Guterman, who was on the show last week. They're nominated for a Webby. Go vote for Byline Webby nomination for their work as a publication.
They're up against the National Art Gallery.
The National Art Gallery.
Vote for Byline.
Yo, you just start preying on the National Art Gallery's downfall. I would never.
They would destroy you.
They would
brother.
destroy me in a heartbeat. But you had to say 5 words. So we went, and it was an event where Goots brought her friends, media counterparts, if you will.
Yeah, it was nice.
Titans of the industry, tastemakers, which of course included Gino and I.
Mm-hmm.
And each person that went up had to say 5 words because for the Webby acceptance speech, you can only say 5 words. They were saying some funny ones in the past from other Webby Awards acceptance speeches. Stephen Colbert, his 5 words were me, 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 me. And then Prince said, everything you think is true. And
Which I didn't know Prince won a Webby.
Right.
I didn't know Stephen Colbert won a Webby.
and then they gave the acceptance speech.
These
So
Webbies are big deals.
So yeah, it was a fun. It's a fun
What were your
exercise.
5 words, Jack?
My 5 words, I sang "I Will Always Love You," Whitney Houston. So it was something like, I will always love you.
And I cried. And the audience actually did a standing ovation. They roared from that. I would have to say it was the best 5
And then
words.
your 5 words was contextual.
Mine-
You think about like Coachella billboards, context-based. What was your?
Mine are always contextual, thinking strategy. Well, I knew Jack was going to do that ahead of time, and I knew he was before me. So basically, when I went up on stage, I gave him a quick shout out. Shout out to the guy that sang before. My 5 words are, next round is on Jack.
Can we get an explosion? Yes.
And Jack did not buy a round for the 100+ people that were there. but-
I made the joke. I will spend the last $100 of our company bank account on a round of drinks.
For
I think
Byline.
that would be for Byline.
for Byline.
I think that would be if you ran out, if you had like $200 left in the bank account, it was all over.
Yeah.
You paid all your debts. Like everyone got paid, the production crew. There's no outstanding costs, and it's just like we have $200 left. What would you spend it on?
I would probably go either
we would-
Arby's
we'd have
or
to
Spirit
decide.
Airline.
I would buy Meta ads.
Oh, nice. I would buy the new Apple Maps ads.
Yes, to advertise that I'm looking for a job because I just ran out of money in our business account.
That's smart.
That'd be good. I feel like you'd have to throw a party though.
Yeah.
I think you'd have to going on a business party. Because I think like if you're gonna go out, you want to do it on your terms.
For sure.
You don't want to. You want to own up to and take accountability. Like, yeah, we tried, it didn't work out. Assuming that it's, legal aside. Like,
Yeah.
assuming it's not because like we're going to prison or something.
Yeah.
We just sucked at
Isn't
running
there
a business.
isn't there a bar in San Francisco that does that? And it's like
Yes.
there's a GoFundMe every year.
Yes, this guy owns and operates this really small bar in San Francisco, and it's like cash only. He goes and supplies the bar by just going to Costco that day and buying a ton of seltzers and beers, puts them into a bathtub, and then just sells it. He's unreal. He's
Doesn't
also
sound
like
like a
a
legal
national
operation.
treasure, really nice guy, but he's always drunk, which is great for him to own a bar.
Yeah.
And at the end of every year, like it's all cash, so you just know that there's so much taxes he's just not paying. Every single year, he starts a GoFundMe to pay his taxes. He gets like the bill from the IRS, and they're like, "Hey, man, like, we're gonna shut you down if you don't pay this. Like, you haven't paid your taxes at all." And so he starts a GoFundMe. Everyone chips in, pays the taxes. the bar operates another year.
I mean, they're just paying the taxes that they didn't pay when they were paying cash.
Right, but there's also speculation, is it for taxes or is he just pocketing that GoFundMe money? is what other people are asking those questions.
Right.
I'm not.
Well, we should do a little interview.
Maybe we send Ross there. Apparently Ross's new job is to just travel the world and
80
do
days.
God knows what.
Yeah, Ross is on a business trip. He is exploring the ad scene in Copenhagen. The ad school, the agency's there, so that content should be coming out in the next 6 months or so. We will see. I've got word, I've been hearing in the halls of our office that he has over 400 gigabytes on his computer from the
500.
500 gigabytes.
And counting.
So he is shooting with our Sony FX30, I believe, at probably 10K.
Of all the content that we have uploaded to Air, our creative operations platform, Air, shout out to Air, it is 1.3 terabytes. So that is over the last probably year and a half
And
of
there's
storage.
1,000
and there's 1,000 gigabytes per terabyte. So he has, in the last 2 days, he has captured enough footage to be half of our entire year and a half worth of footage for everything that we've done.
It's going to be super high quality. This is going to be cinema. I'm pretty sure it's the same rate that Christopher Nolan shot The Odyssey on.
Yeah, and Interstellar and Oppenheimer. I think
we're actually going to. We should probably hit up like Warner Brothers Discovery to get like theater placements, like in movies.
Yes, we could do a screening of it. It's going to be
what's it, the Lincoln Square IMAX?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the only one that would be able to play this. Ross is using technology that people haven't even seen before. Mm-hmm. He's pulling it out. He's like, well, no, trust me, it'll be good. Mm-hmm. But he was saying it was kind of a welcome to the league moment for him when the customs person asked him what he's doing in Copenhagen, and he said he's a content creator.
Bruh. JR is getting comfortable on the soundboard.
How do you feel about that, JR? You just did a bruh. How do you feel about Ross entering a new country and saying he's on business as a content creator?
Honestly, Ross is probably, besides you two, the most likely to have a successful career as a content creator. He posts on TikTok quite regularly. Mm-hmm. So I would say it's actually not too crazy.
No,
it's secondly factual. You gotta turn off the mic. Yeah. Did he
change his header on LinkedIn?
Did he? Ellie asked if he changed his header on LinkedIn. JR, I don't know if you have the capability to pull up Ross's LinkedIn right now.
I'm checking.
I'll do it in tandem.
How come?
The show is also over, by the way. If everyone is waiting,
we will be back tomorrow.
If you're waiting with bated breath for like another interview to come in, it's not happening. That was it. But we'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern time to talk about the marketing news of the day. I see it on my screen. I don't know if
content editor. No, yeah, he hasn't changed it.
Good Lord. His subline is human, and the headline for him is making things at breaking and entering, which is fair.
How did you even get that changed?
To be human?
Yeah.
Yeah, just human. So that's Ross. That was the Ross update from us.
We miss you, Ross.
So tomorrow we'll be back. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and X. Mm-hmm. If you missed the episode, we will be posting it. It'll be available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Follow us, Breaking and Entering. It's the marketing news that you need to know every day, on the day. Most important things going on. Get you up to speed. Great show today. Congrats to everyone.